She wasn't born into this life, but she was dragged into it. A foreign girl, taken from Egypt, carried across the border as property, and handed over to Sarai, wife of Abram. They called her Hagar, but no one ever asked her name. She was just the servant. Sarai carried a wound time couldn't heal. God had promised her husband a child, but her womb had grown quiet and tired of waiting. Then one night, after years of silence, she turned to Abram, her voice flat, worn. "The Lord has kept me from bearing children," she said. Then came the words no woman should ever have to speak. "Sleep with my servant. Maybe I can build a family through her." It wasn't a request, it was a command. And Hagar? She had no say, no power, no place to refuse. She was given, used, folded into a plan that was never hers. Days passed. Then, something changed. She was pregnant, carrying Abram's child, the very heir Sarai had cried for. And for the first time, Hagar felt something unfamiliar. Significance. She had done what Sarai could not. She was no longer just a servant. She was the mother of a promise. But confidence has a cost, and pride, when mixed with pain, becomes poison. When Hagar knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. The air in the camp turned cold. Sarai's eyes turned sharp, and under every smile was a snare. Then Sarai, with fury in her voice, turned to Abram and cried, "This is your fault. I gave you my servant, and now she mocks me." But Abram, unwilling to take sides, replied quietly, "She's your servant. Do with her as you please." And that was permission. Sarai unleashed her wrath. She gave Hagar more chores than hours. She lashed her with words like knives. She turned every glance into a judgment, every task into torment. Hagar, who once walked with quiet pride, now wept in corners. She had given them life, and now they were draining hers. As the day went by, she grew more frustrated, greatly betrayed by the same people she trusted. Then, one day, she couldn't take it anymore. So she ran into the open wilderness, pregnant, alone, afraid. But to her, it didn't matter. Pain behind her, uncertainty ahead. Anything was better than being treated like less than human. She thought no one would care, no one would notice. She was just a runaway slave girl, a mistake in someone else's story. But she was wrong. And then came a voice, not harsh, not cruel, but clear and kind. "Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from and where are you going?" She gasps, not just because someone had spoken to her, but because someone had spoken her name. She was not a mistake, not forgotten, not discarded. She was seen. And the voice continued, "Return to your mistress and submit to her. You will give birth to a son, and you will name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard your affliction." Genesis 16:9-11. Hagar thought she had been abandoned, but she ran straight into the arms of God. She was never invisible, never disposable, not to the one who sees all. In the quiet hush of the desert, a truth begins to settle over her soul. She is not forgotten, not abandoned, not invisible. The weight she had carried, rejection, fear, shame, melts in the presence of the one who called her by name. And in that sacred moment, Hagar finds her voice. Her lips tremble, tears spill down sunburned cheeks, and from the depths of a heart that had once been crushed, she whispers a name the world had never heard before. "You are El Roy, the God who sees me." This wasn't just her discovery, it was her declaration. She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her, "You are the God who sees me." For she said, "I have now seen the one who sees me." Genesis 16:13. And from that day on, the spring where she had fallen became sacred ground. They called it Bir Lahai Roy, the well of the living one who sees me. It still stands between Kadesh and Bered. Genesis 16:14. Hagar gathers herself. She rises, not with fear, but with the steady strength of a woman who has been seen by heaven. She does not return the same way she left. She walks back into Abram's camp, not as the girl who ran, but as the woman who had met the God who sees. Abraham stared at the sky, still echoing with the voice of God. 99 years old. And yet, a promise was rising in his tent. Sarah will bear a child. At 90, he didn't know whether to laugh or fall apart. This was everything he'd waited for, everything he thought was too late to receive. But his heart whispered a name he couldn't shake. Ishmael, his firstborn, his boy. If only Ishmael might live under your blessing. He prayed it with trembling hands, because deep down, he already knew. Ishmael was blessed, but not chosen. But to understand this moment, we must remember Abraham's first heir, the one born into a house divided. A birth no one clapped for, a child wrapped in pressure. But Elroy had his own plan. That night felt heavy. The wind was still, and in one dark corner of the camp, a servant girl groaned in labor, in sweat, silence, and pain. Then, a cry, a baby's cry. Hagar looked into the face of her son, and for a moment, every harsh word, every lonely step through the wilderness, felt worth it. Abram came. He took the child into his arms, and with a steady voice, he gave him a name that echoed heaven's mercy. Ishmael. God hears. A name that remembered the desert. A name that proved she had not been forgotten. For 13 years, Ishmael ran through Abraham's camp like any son would. He learned the wind, learned the bow, learned his father's voice. He was strong, unapologetically wild, a son of the desert, the first to carry Abram's legacy in his veins. But his place was temporary, because the child of promise was still coming. And when he came, everything changed. Sarah gave birth to Isaac, and though joy filled the tents, a quiet storm began to brew. One day, during a feast to celebrate Isaac's weaning, Sarah saw it. A moment, a laugh, a glance from Ishmael that pierced her like a blade. Maybe it was mockery, maybe just boyish pride. But to Sarah, it was war. She turned to Abraham, her words sharp as desert stone. Send her away, that slave woman, and her son. He will never share in the inheritance with my son, Isaac. Abraham froze. How do you send away your own son? The boy he had taught to walk, the one who called him Abba, the son who once felt like the fulfillment of everything. His heart split open. But before he could speak, God's voice returned, calm but decisive. Don't be distressed. I will take care of the boy. I will make him a nation, because he is your son too. And just like that, the chapter began to close. The boy in the shadows, blessed but not chosen, was about to be sent into the wilderness again. Would he survive it? Would the desert swallow him whole? Or would Elroy see him again? Morning breaks quietly. No whisper, no sound. Just a heavy silence clinging to the air. Abraham stands still, torn between love and obedience. In his hands, some bread, a skin of water, and a goodbye he never wanted to say. He places them into Hagar's hands. Then he looks at her son, his son, but doesn't speak. The silence between them says it all. And just like that, she is sent away. No escort, no promise, no clear direction, only the open desert of Beersheba and a sky that showed no mercy. The desert stretched endlessly around them, silent, suffocating. The sand burned beneath her feet. The sun pressed down like a curse, and with every aching step, the questions inside her grew louder than the wind. God, do you still see me? The skin of water was nearly empty. Her son's breathing had slowed. His lips were cracked, his strength fading. She scanned the horizon, desperate for a tree, a shadow, a spring. But there was nothing, no help, no sound, not even silence anymore. Only despair. Then, the final drop slipped from the water skin, and something inside her broke. She knelt beside her son. Her hands shook as she gently placed him under the shade of a dry, brittle bush. The only cover she could offer. Her eyes lingered on his face. "I can't watch my boy die." Her whisper cracked as it left her throat. And then she turned away, not in selfishness, but in anguish. She walked off, stumbling, until she was about a bowshot away, just far enough that she wouldn't have to see his final breath, but still close enough to hear his sobs. Then she collapsed to the ground and wept. Not the kind of weeping that could be hidden. Not the composed tears of someone who still had strength. This was different. This was a mother's weeping, raw, wordless, breaking open in the heat of the wilderness. She poured out her sorrow onto the cracked earth, as if maybe, just maybe, her tears could bring water, as if her cries could reach heaven. And in that moment, heaven listened. God heard the boy's cry, not just hers. And through the silence of the wilderness, a voice thundered softly from heaven. "Hagar, what's wrong? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying where he lies. Go to him. Lift him up. Take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation." Genesis 21:17-18. She opened her eyes, and there it was. A well, right there in front of her. Clear water glistening where death had settled. A miracle in the dust. The same God who once saw her by a spring in the wilderness was now seeing her again. He was not done with her. He was not done with her son. That day the desert did not bury them. It birthed them. The wilderness, once a grave, became their beginning. A place of survival, a place of purpose, a place where heaven proved it still listens. But survival didn't come easily. Ishmael did not grow up with golden robes or royal tents. He grew up with sunburned skin and calloused hands. He learned to endure, to pull strength from the silence, to launch arrows like prayers into the open sky. He became an archer, a son of the wild, a son of the desert. Genesis 21:20. And when he came of age, Hagar found him a wife. From Egypt, from the very land she once fled. Her past became part of his future. A new chapter began, and from that chapter came 12. 12 sons, 12 rulers, 12 tribes that would stretch across the land. His name, Ishmael, God hears, echoed through every one of them. Nebaioth, Kedar, Adbel, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedemah. Genesis 25:13-15. His legacy took root. He lived 137 years, and when his time came, he breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. Genesis 25:17. His descendants spread from Havilah to Shur, east of Egypt, toward Ashur, strong, free, untamed. Genesis 25:18. But what of Hagar? The Bible never tells us where she died or where she was buried, because that's not what mattered most. What mattered is that she was seen, that she was heard, that God etched her name into the eternal story. The same God who split seas for nations stooped low to comfort a runaway woman in the dust. The wilderness did not erase her. It raised her, and the servant no one remembered became the mother of people the world could not ignore. Her story didn't end in exile. It ended in purpose. Because with El Roy, the unseen are never forgotten. Now, let me ask you, Have you ever felt unseen? Like you're just existing, passed over, forgotten? Have you ever been betrayed by the very people you thought would love and protect you? Have you ever prayed hard with everything in you and still felt like heaven stayed silent? Have you ever carried something so heavy it almost broke you and no one came to help? If that's you today, I came to remind you of this. The God who sits on the throne, El Roy, He sees you. He sees your tears when no one else does. He hears the cries you don't even say out loud. He knows what you've carried, and He's not looking away. He didn't look away from Hagar, a foreign slave girl in the desert. He called her by name. He saw her suffering. He blessed her future, and He etched her name into destiny. If He saw Hagar, He sees you. So don't lose faith. The God who saw her, heard her, met her in the wilderness, will come through for you too. El Roy has not forgotten. He never does. Hold on.